Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. The special election studio open to analyze the Lagos country election held today across the 57 LGs and the LCDAs. Let's get talking right now on the program. We will be dissecting the issues raised on security, issues raised on traffic, issues raised on the economy, issues raised on the conduct of the exercise. Joining me tonight is Yomi Fawahimi. He's a local government development expert and also the Commissioner of Police, who was here yesterday as we look towards the election. But today we'll be looking assessing what has happened today. Mr. Fatai Awosheni joins us on the program. Also is Mr. Shola Babalola. He's a national coordinator of the Transition Monitoring Group. He joins us also on the program. Many thanks, gentlemen, for joining us on the program. Maybe I should start from the middle, from Mr. Fatai Awosheni. You were here yesterday and now today. A lot of people were frustrated by that restriction order. A lot of people it was a frustration for them, but they're not used to that kind of situation in Lagos. Billions of naira went down the drain because Lagos went for election today.
What were needed to be done must be done for the election to hold. The police enforce the laws. We don't make the laws. The law was made on restriction. Adequate enough information was also sent out prior to this time, and it would be expected that everyone that probably has something to do would have made arrangements on how to get to where that person wants to do whatever he or she wants to do. So the police only enforced the law, and of course the restriction order was properly enforced.
Today, did you get any major incident of violence?
Not really. I was out by myself. Those areas that everybody had been thinking that blood would be spilled, we've not had anything like that. I did my monitoring in between Oshodi, Mushin, and Agege, where we had skirmishes. There were prompt responses, and where it became necessary that we should give support to the electoral officials in moving results of votes casted to the collation center, we did that. I got personally involved in escorting some of those materials, especially around Mushin, where there was apprehension that some people would hijack the process. And I can tell you that as we sit down and rounding up everything, it was relatively peaceful. We've had comments that even in Mushin, nobody expected that people can really come out to cast votes. And in some of those few areas where we had skirmishes, there were prompt responses to those skirmishes, and that led to some good arrests to be made in some areas.
How many arrests have you made so far?
As of the time I left the office now, at the last count, we should be having about 110 suspects that have been arrested for one thing or the other. There may still be more. We've not finished the whole process, but as of now, we have close to about 110 in custody.
Okay, let me come to Mr. Babalola here, who I understand that Transition Monitoring Group had about 50 observers for this election. What is your report? What did you get today? What are your the preliminary report that you have gotten today?
Okay, thank you very much. What we did is to ensure that we have our observers across the entire 57 local government LCD in Lagos State, so that we can have a general feel of how the election fares at the end of the day. So far, so good. It's like a bag of mixed feeling. Bag of mixed feeling in the sense that, in the morning there was a little, downpour, which actually, prevented people.
It was a lot in some places.
Yeah.
So little in some areas.
Maybe in Ireland, you are right, because the road were flooded. So people couldn't really come out by 8 o'clock to really exercise their franchise. But immediately after the downpour, we expected that people should, come out and exercise their franchise. But to our surprise, people failed to come out, because in some places, as at 10 o'clock, even the INEC officials have not even arrived their duty post.
Is this the poorest turnout that you've seen so far since you've been observing?
So far, so good. I want to state categorically that this is the poorest turnout I've seen so far, because I observed election in Abuja last year. You remember last year was Abuja local council election. Even though it was during the rainy season, but immediately after the rain, people came out to exercise their franchise. So we had expected the same thing to happen in Lagos State. But, they stay put in their various homes and they are not ready, to come out. In fact, in places like Oshodi and Mushin, you see them converting, the road to football pitch. You see young, youth, they're playing football who are of voting age, to come out. But they are not doing this. And surprisingly, before the election, you will remember, so far so good, Lagos State registered the largest number of new voter registrants, about 1.2 million. So we had expected that that's supposed to ordinarily transform to vote. But we couldn't see anybody coming out to exercise their franchise.
Security-wise, the commissioner of police here, don't look at his side. If you look at me, would you say that the security agencies did a good job?
Of course, if you ask me, they came out. Yes, about 30,000 of them. So far, so good. They are in their duty post. The places I've observed so far, I saw them, and they conducted themselves in a civil manner.
You think today's election was over-policed?
No, I wouldn't want to say the election, was over-policed. 30,000, given what is going on in Lagos State, even though we had an advocacy visit with the Commissioner of Police and he told us that we shouldn't be apprehensive of anything. But then, given the nature of Lagos State, I don't think 30,000 police is much. So,
if I read this comment to you from a friend who is a journalist in the U.S. who perhaps is not aware of the manner in which we conduct our elections in Nigeria, Dr. Schneider, a friend of mine, says, "Sean, what's a movement restriction order? Is it unique to election day?" It asked me that question on Twitter, and I responded to say, okay, in Nigeria, movement is always restricted. At elections, for security reasons, is almost a norm. If I come to you now, Yomi Fawemi, this narrative that we have, restriction of movement, and now we have this kind of low turnout in our elections, is it a lost hope about the grassroots politics and grassroots elections in Nigeria?
I think sometimes the challenge we have is strategy that does not align with our plans. Okay, so for many people in Lagos, they registered near their place of work at the point in which we're doing registration. So on the day of election, they restrict movement. They don't work on Saturdays. So what we did was that we created a system where people registered near their places of work, and then on the day of election, we restricted their movement. I think, and very nice what the CP said, I've seen elections in this country. Restriction of movement was not in our historical reality. We did not always restrict movement at previous elections. We did not. And I say it with all sorts of emphasis. So I think if we have a situation where we need to now to restrict...
It will disagree with you. He said we've always restricted movement.
Let's go back to history. Our first elections in this country, we did not restrict movement. Of course, there was no vehicles to move around, but we did not restrict. And don't forget that my right to movement is guaranteed in the Constitution.
In nearby Ghana, the last presidential
so the point
election,
is, maybe our current reality suggests we should restrict movement. But I think we need to have a gap analysis and have a plan to start to do elections in Nigeria where we don't need to restrict movement. That's one part, particularly since some people need to move. So there are people that registered their place of work and couldn't go. There are also people that have moved locations. So I was living in Mushin, I have now moved to Surulere. I can't move to where I voted or where I registered. The INEC system didn't allow me to transfer. I agree that maybe at this point, yes, for the sake of security, but we need to have a plan, because that's where everybody is going to in the world. People are even going to the world where people do elections on their phone and they vote there. I mean, so the question is that this is what we have currently. Now, they're talking about participation. Lagos local government election has always witnessed low turnout. I dare say that we have not had 30% since 1999. In fact, we had an election where we recorded 16% of voters that came up. So that has been it. But what worsened this situation was all the things that happened before the election day. There were political parties that were appointing their candidates as at Wednesday or Thursday. There are areas where people did not even know the candidates. So the question is that the build-up to the election was not such in which people understood who are the people running for offices, and therefore, in a place where there was already apathy, and in areas where there was already fears, people had that challenge to say, what's the point? Maybe at the end of the day, also realizing that people have seen that local government system has not really delivered the dividend they want, and therefore they didn't show up to that.
Mr. Wayemi, we'll take a short break. When we come back, my panel, they're still with me in the studio, and we dig more into what perhaps have caused these low turnout that we've seen today and some of the security issues that generated during today's elections. Join us again.